if a woman who is over the age of 18 is trafficked and she's brought into the United States and does not have proper documentation, and let's assume somehow she gets away from her captors, is she criminalized in the United States for being here illegally?
No.
She is not?
No.
Okay, can you describe the law and changes in the law that have worked to that effect?
There are two different kinds of visas that victims of trafficking or victims of crime can qualify for. And I brought with me tonight, I'm totally calling her out, our victim specialist who works a lot of cases with me is working on one of these now where you can get a T visa or a U visa that will enable you to stay in the United States. There's some requirement that you are helping law enforcement in their investigation and that sort of thing. It's a fairly easy standard to meet if you're a victim of crime and particularly a victim of trafficking. So if we find victims who are here illegally for whatever reason, they certainly are not deported. They are not sort of charged with any crimes. And the effort is really to give them status here if this is where they want to stay. Certainly some do, and certainly some want to go back home. And we try to navigate that for them as well as we can. But there are no criminal consequences for them shortly. And if they do choose to stay in the United States, we can help them do that.
Right. Since we're on the American legal discussion, let me ask you specifically, in 2000, Congress passed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Okay, and that was really as a result of greater publicity of this problem that was emerging. What does the law call for, and what's been its effect specifically?
So the law essentially asked those who investigate criminal acts in the country to, if somebody is, I'm going to forget all of the words, recruiting, harboring, transporting, and there's a couple of others, anyone, and forcing them to either offer services or to offer sex, those people can be prosecuted for trafficking. But what it does attempt to do is decriminalize the victim, and particularly in sex trafficking cases. And this is the problem. Many women, their first encounter with law enforcement is if they're being arrested for prostitution. And so that becomes a state issue for them, and then we're able to sort of figure out whether or not they're being forced in some way. And certainly if there are minors, there's the assumption that they are being forced. And that's a difficult thing for victims. It's a traumatizing thing for somebody who's being forced to work in commercial sex. So what that statute does is it decriminalizes their behavior and criminalizes the behavior of the person who's forcing them to engage in whatever activity. What that does for us is it allows us to get at the problem and to get victims to hopefully move beyond what they're currently doing. Since we aren't in a position to prosecute them federally, always view them as victims, and so can give them services and try to find them shelter and medical care and get them educations if that's what they choose to, which is something that doesn't happen in the state, and so that makes it very difficult for state people who are trying to prosecute these cases as well, because they have to deal with that part of it.
Right. Let me ask you, I mean, how effective has the enforcement been? Are there adequate resources to go after the perpetrators? How aggressive is the FBI in terms of tracking these people down? Or do you sort of more passively wait until a victim falls into your presence? I mean, how is this prosecuted?
They're difficult cases to prosecute because largely they do require some sort of cooperation from the victim.
Right.
And particularly in sex trafficking cases domestically, you're not going to get that. And so that makes it very complicated. We try to be very aggressive. We get reports from NCMEC, who's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, of girls or boys that they think might be at risk for sexual exploitation. And we try to find those people, whether or not they end up being minors. We get a lot of reports, ironically or not, from Backpage, which is one of the primary advertisers of these services. And they try to let us know if they think somebody might be a minor, if they get reports that are a minor. So we try to find those people. And we try to think creatively about ways to identify victims as well. And that's the hard part, is to do that.